Hello everyone, how you doing? Well, I think I've done a few videos already on the JW themed movie Apostasy. It's got such good reviews across the board. Now, this weekend there was an extra interview with the director. It was done by theguardian.com and their Sunday newspaper, which is The Observer. The Guardian is a UK national broadsheet, and it has a good reputation. So here we are. This is the guy who's directed it. Not an easy task, and he's written it as well. And you can see the headline, Apostasy Director. It was liberating to leave the Jehovah's Witnesses. A lot of you will agree with that. Apologies if I keep getting his surname wrong. Daniel Kokotajlo was brought up in the Christian sect. Now his extraordinary debut film casts an acute eye on the religion he turned his back on. Now you can see with the writer here, you've got her Twitter link. In the past, with other campaigning, I've had a lot of really positive results from tweeting with these reporters, so it may be something you would like to do with her, even if it's just to say, hey, thank you for this report. I will put a link, of course, in the description to this article. So here we are. Making a film is always up to almost any given moment difficult, verging on the impossible, and Daniel Kokotajlo's first feature was no exception. His backers were expectant. Just to get backers is amazing. His budget was miniature. Far too many pages of the script over which he had laboured for so long needed to be filmed every single day. And just like any other tyro director, I don't know what tyro director means, he brought with him all the usual doubts. Why on earth had he insisted on so many locations? What would it be like to give notes to his star, Siobhan Finneran? She's a good actress. Wow. However, for Kokotajlo, whose quietly controlled screenplay is rooted in his upbringing as a Jehovah's Witness, there were other deeper things going on too. It took this gentle, softly spoken man from Tameside in Manchester 21 days to shoot his film. That's quick. That's a lot of pressure. And in that time, his beard turned somewhat dramatically from mostly brown to mostly grey. Oh, petal. I lost loads of hair as well. I was about a similar age to him when I lost loads of hair due to stress, but mine grew back, so I hope his does too. So he's saying this, placing a hand ruefully on his head. When we started, I looked about my age, which is 37. By the time we'd finished, I was 10 years old. Oh, bless. Every day brought with it the feeling of transgression. I think many of us could sympathise with that. Even before the shoot, this was a subject I was uncomfortable with, he says. As witnesses, we were told to avoid literature that was critical of us. We were made to feel it was almost on the level of being satanic. When I first got hold of one of these books, not long after I left the religion, I was literally shaking with fear. And when I started working on this project, that fear came right back. Perhaps, though, this anxiety was also useful. One of the more remarkable things about Apostasy, and there are many, it's hard to imagine a more accomplished debut, is its even-handedness. The way it stirs in the audience sympathy for characters who beliefs most of us might ordinarily struggle to understand. Kokotajlo nods. I did feel a pressure to be as accurate and as honest as possible. I didn't want people still in the religion to be able to say, this is just propaganda. I needed it to be right. Are witnesses likely to choose to see it? That depends, he thinks. They'll be advised not to. But if they're curious, they might. There are the rules, and then there's what people actually do. Personally, in some creative exercises I've done, it is good to get to a place where you feel compassion for the characters. I mean, the characters that may be doing things that personally your heart goes, oh, but to then broaden your heart to let them in and try and understand them and not judge. Apostasy is set in Oldham, or a place very like it, and centres on a family of three: Ivana Finneran, best known for roles in Happy Valley and Downton Abbey, who is quite superb, and her teenage daughters Alex, Molly Wright, and Louisa, Sasha Parkinson. Ivana is a devout witness. Away from her job at the council, she spends her time handing out the watchtower on the street, or at her local Kingdom Hall listening to the elders preach about Armageddon, which is coming very soon, isn't it always? And with it, paradise. Alex is also committed, though she suffers from a serious blood condition. She has told her doctor that she would not want a transfusion, even if it were a matter of life and death. Witnesses believe that those who respect life as a gift from God do not try to sustain it by the taking of blood, a doctrine they have followed since 1945. Louisa, however, has begun to doubt and will soon, having become pregnant by her college boyfriend, find herself shunned by her mother and the community. The film is about the three women's faith and all the ways in which it is tested, but also, par excellence, about the meagre world they inhabit, a realm that is unnervingly quiet, no musical television, frequently joyless. The witnesses do not celebrate birthdays, Easter or Christmas, regarding such feast days as pagan, and almost entirely controlled by men, the zealous elders who rule the roost entirely. Down at the Kingdom Hall we have a picture of two of the leads there at their Metropolitan Witnessing Card. This is not to say that these women are unhappy, precisely that they feel they're missing out. Ivana and Alex, if not Louisa, think of Armageddon, after which the witnesses will spend eternity in paradise on earth, and feel nothing but excitement, a sense of imminent grace and bliss. That's interesting, because I guess I don't experience people's or witnesses' reactions as being part of grace. So that's interesting that someone else saw that. And while they may be taciturn with each other, they have pretty regular conversations with God. Did Kokotajlo worry about dramatizing these conversations? I would have thought it was a really rich source of being able to display what characters are really feeling inside but don't reveal to others. Didn't know who's financing his film. It was funded by iFeatures, which is supported by the BBC, the BFI and Creative England. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing that this guy got this funding. Really, it's so hard. Quail at the prospect of a screenplay in which what Alex says to her doctor and what she says to God are given equal weight. Wow, I would have thought that was really important. But he smiles. We're in a Soho hotel, which, metaphorically speaking, couldn't be further from the things we are talking about. It was hard to convince them what it would look like, but I also realised, and I think they did too, that I could never get across the mindset of the witnesses, the cognitive dissonance between what they think and what other people think in a traditional script. The audience needs to understand the weight of their beliefs, the spiritual pressure they're under, because that's what motivates them. Wow, well said. It's true, isn't it? Apostasy will arrive in cinemas. This is the UK, just before the Children Act, and I've done a few videos on that film as well, if anyone cares to look. The film adaptation of Ian McEwan's novel of the same name, in which a judge tries the case of a teenage boy who, for religious reasons, refuses the medical treatment that will save his life. Naturally, Kokotajlo has, no, I don't have to say that, I'm sorry, has mixed feelings about this. Why did it have to come out at the same time as ours, he wails? I would hope that one supports the other, because people get interested in the subject and want to know more. So I would really hope that one helps the other. He doesn't, though, believe the two narratives have much in common. It's an outsider's book, he says. Fair enough. When I read it, I found myself nitpicking. Ex-witnesses always say, oh, that's not quite right. Which isn't in doubt, however, is the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses are still willing to put their lives in the balance by refusing to accept blood. The Jehovah's Witnesses were founded by Charles Taze Russell, albeit under a different name, in the US in the 1870s. That's such a long time. And the end was imminent then. Oh gosh. And there are now around 8 million. We're going to put question marks, aren't we, after that? In 235 countries. What? In the UK, there are 130,000. It's a small number, isn't it? A group advocating reform of the blood rules, now who's this? That'd be interesting, believes that in 2016, at a conservative estimate, the prohibition resulted in some 1,220 deaths worldwide. Now, it's often asked how many deaths come as a result of the blood rules. So worldwide, 1,220, and we think of the cult, mass deaths, suicides, murders. If that were happening with those, that would be big news, wouldn't it? So I don't think it should be lesser news because it's spread out across countries over the year. Between 1961 and 2016, the same group suggests... Oh, here we go. Oh, no. More than 33,000 people may have died. Oh. They've changed the rules now, says Kokotajlo. They're allowed to take various fractions of the component parts of blood, but if you're in an emergency, a car crash, say, that isn't going to be possible, is it? Your life is still in danger. He shakes his head. Now, it happens far more often than you realise. Kokotajlo studied textiles at Manchester, that's a bit different, Metropolitan University, after which he spent several years making a living from painting and hip-hop. I say, young man, that's rather radical. And it was in this period, when he was sharing a house with friends, that he discovered film. I had been looking into my Italian-Ukrainian heritage, which comes from my grandparents, so I was already into Fellini and Pasolini, all your posh thing. But when I moved in with those guys, one of them was into British cinema. Until then, it had never crossed my mind that there was such a thing as British cinema. I say, I'm glad you caught up with that, because of course there is. Outside the mainstream. Mike Lee, Alan Clark, Anthony Asquith, Terence Rattick and David Lean. That got me interested. I felt like maybe this was something I could do. He must be very talented that he can do all these disparate things so well. At 27, he left Manchester for a screenwriting MA at Westminster University. Of course, he funded with his art and a series of bar jobs. Good lad. Was it helpful? It was in terms of contacts moving out of Manchester and life skills, he says. I guess I learned how to communicate with Southerners. Well, it takes a lot of learning because we're an honorary bunch. I Oh, where are I? But then it was a case of, what do I do now? Eventually the answer came in the form of a short film called The Mess Hall of an Online Warrior, made for a few £100. It did quite well at festivals, and I was invited in by Vision Media, the then Regional Film Council, who said they'd fund another one. Wow, he must be talented, because they just don't go handing out money. Wow. It also, it also having done well at festivals, he began developing Apostasy in 2015. By November 2016, shooting was underway. Oh, this is a guy who can get things done. Wow. Like, I am seriously impressed. Did he always know his first full-length film would be about the witnesses? No, I worked on a few scripts before it. Maybe I was scared of it. I didn't want to upset my family. Kokotajlo is the oldest of three. His father did the odd job here and there. His mother, like Ivana, worked for the council and housing. I was 8 when she converted, he says. I'm trying to think of his age. So he was born about 81, 82. Also about 1990 or something. She met this very nice old couple who talked to her about paradise. It's lovely. And that was still the cuddling the panda phase, wasn't it? And the fact that the end of the world was coming pretty soon, and all our problems would then be fixed. It was very appealing, especially to our family, growing up where we did. What about his father? He was not convertible. There's a pressure in the witnesses for men who convert to bring their wives in, but it doesn't work the other way round. Women can come to the church alone. Now, that's not something I've encountered before. Have any of you? It might be a regional thing, but I would be really interested if any of you have experienced that men are supposed to bring their wives in, but not the other way round. Nevertheless, life at home did change. Our lives as witnesses were hidden from him. He would get quite angry with my mum, with how long she was spending at the hall, and going out preaching. But we still stopped celebrating our birthdays and Christmas, and we, his siblings and his mother, went to the hall 3 times a week for 2 or 3 hours. He was required to witness knocking on doors and pushing magazines on people, and as a teenager was terrified of people seeing him walking around, is it Dukinfield in Tameside in a suit. Well, there will be how many people who will know that, oh gosh, I hope no one sees me. Yeah, you got people on your side there. And did he miss out on stuff like TV and music? To some degree, because of my dad, we were less disconnected from the world than some witnesses. But if I did say watch films that I wasn't supposed to, I'd soon feel guilty about it and purge myself by giving away all my DVDs or destroying them. I knew other people that would go through their music files and destroy them, and sometimes on very precarious reasons, really. Official trailer, you can click on that. That does exist in a few places. Did he truly believe? Yes, though it came down to who was the speaker at the Kingdom Hall in the day. Some were better than others, and they could fill you with rapture. Generally, I was very excited because when I was in it, there was still a prophecy going round that people born before 1914 would see Armageddon. I don't. Some of us remember that one. That was so powerful. And the New World, so that meant it was going to come soon. They were getting pretty old by that point. I held out against any doubts because I was so excited about this. I don't know if I was excited. It was just all rather horrible. There were other witnesses who were quite scared of Armageddon. I didn't know if it was scared. It was just horrible. I didn't want the rest of my family dying and all this shit. No. God was going to remove the rest of the world and only the witnesses would be left, and it would be our job to dispose of the bodies as well. Don't we know that? The nightmares of many a J-dub child. But I blocked that stuff out. Understandable. I just focused on those glorious images. Here they come, the brightly coloured illustrations they gave us of paradise. Here it comes. We were hanging out with lions and tigers. Don't forget the pandas. I never thought about growing old. No. Oh, and you know, generations back for over 100 years didn't think about that either. I always believed I would never get older than 21. When you're a kid, 21 is very old. They told us there was no need to worry about this life too much. That's why you were discouraged from going to college or even from thinking about it. The witnesses would all get young again. It's like Peter Pan syndrome. And I'm still dealing with it. That's very telling, isn't it? He's being very honest in this. Don't you think? Peter Pan syndrome, and he's still dealing with it. I'm sure so many of you will understand that. When did he start to doubt? It was a very slow process. The first thing I noticed was that I didn't feel comfortable with the way women were treated. Good man. It might have been a wedding ceremony, or the scriptures they were pulling out were about women needing to be capable wives. Don't wear trousers, and men being the head of the house. They were using lots of very disturbing phrases. Then I went to college, and that was the key, really, which is why they don't want kids to go to college. People would ask my opinion on something, and I would be scrambling around trying to find an answer in a text somewhere, because that's what life as a witness is like. It's group thinking based on the interpretation of a text. I looked back at the meetings and I began to see what was going on. He's being very honest. What about the prophecies? Wasn't he skeptical of their tendency to slip and slide? The date for Armageddon is apt to change whenever the latest deadline passes. Hang on, I'm going to have to stop this because I'm running out of fuel. Well, it's clever the way they do it. They say they misunderstood the text. I don't think that's clever, sorry. But that God has shown them the right way. Now, and then later, now, and then later. Oh, now it's right. They now say, for instance, that they got mixed up over the word generation. It's so bad that it's the current generation who will see Armageddon. Oh, yeah. So people are excited again because it will happen quite soon. When a date passes, some people leave because they're upset, but those who stay only get stronger. I might ask, or more desperate. There was a big one in 1975, I think. You're right there, Daniel. People were selling their houses. You're right there again. Although I only read about it later. You're right. And I only read about it after leaving. I couldn't believe that no one told me about it while I was in. I mean, what a betrayal. When we joined, they removed it. I.e. delete it from the record, you're right. So we had no idea it happened. So I'm interested to see if that was your experience as well, because that was mine. I was kind of sucked in just a few years, I think, before you, Mum. And yeah, it'd already been removed. Already. So Kokotajlo, who thinks of himself as an agnostic now, attended his last meeting at the Kingdom Hall when he was 22 or 23. His siblings have also since left the church. Well, I'm glad that they can now be together with that. How does his mother feel about this? I'm not sure. I still have a good relationship with her. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? Because technically he wouldn't be allowed to. So I hope elders don't get in the way and try and stop that, because honestly, really, under their governance, they're not supposed to have a relationship. For a long time afterwards, she would still ask me to come back to meetings. She still does sometimes. But witnesses just expect you to come back. It's like Northerners thinking. Just going through a silly phrase of living in the South, he laughs. Well, excuse me, as a Southerner, I'm going through a permanent phase of living in the North because it's so much flipping better. It is still a part of him, though. Surely it must be. It is, yes, he says softly. I feel like I've dealt with it now, having made the film, but it is still a part of me. Sounds mature. You've got these ideas and values in life. I'm compassionate. I do my best to listen to people, but it's a tough one. Is that the religion, or is that just how I am? Does he miss the certainty of belief, or is it liberating to be free of it? It was liberating when I first left. I remember when I first read Darwin. Well, I guess Darwin didn't touch me the same, but I guess, we're going to find out how different avenues. Wow, I thought, this makes so much more sense than the Bible. But then when we joined the witnesses, I felt the same way. There was this key to the universe and everything was clear. There wasn't elitism in it. You're right. All these idiots around us, we thought, they don't know. I used to feel quite smug. And maybe I'm still looking for that. Perhaps I want to be part of a cult-like group. When I first left, it was about music. Now it's film. Oh, bless him. How does he feel about Apostasy's imminent release? Nervous, excited, proud. His mother hasn't seen it and probably won't, but at every festival at which it has been screened, he has been touched to see the turnout of supportive ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. So don't underestimate the power of you guys going to see it. Some of it is really emotional, he says. There have been people who took blood and were then shunned. Even in London, there were people who had been shunned. As for secular audiences who will bring to the cinema their own prejudices and misconceptions, perhaps by spending time with Ivana, they will come to see the world, albeit briefly, through her eyes. Certainly this is his hope. The squat, bleak, red brick Kingdom Hall, we know those, where she worships in the film, stands on a dual carriageway. A road that works quite brilliantly as a metaphor, the world zooming past, while inside everyone inside sits quite still waiting for its end. But for all her zealotry, Ivana is human after all. Her love for her daughters might be horribly muddled, but it is still love. Nevertheless, I'm too scared to see this. I don't think I can go. Some of these things, there's other stuff that I complain about. And, friends of mine have died because of, and there's been truthful films, and I can't watch them. I can't, I don't know if I can watch this either. So this is about the UK, obviously. Apostasy is in the cinemas on 27th of July, and then Daniel's also doing Q&As after select screenings of the film across the UK. So you can go, there's the web address there, and it looks like he would very much appreciate any extra dubs going. And well, in that photo, Daniel, you're back to looking 37. You don't look 47. Don't worry about it. You did well. It was purging, perhaps. So, well, just absolute respect to all these people, and hey, always interested in your reactions when you watch something like this. Thanks for watching this video, and bye.